The enemy was under her own roof that a 12-year-old girl named Cindy intercepted radio communications about a planned attack on a motorcycle charity event and discovered her stepfather was part of the conspiracy. Remaining quiet would endanger innocent people. Coming forward could cost her safety. Despite the risk, she alerted the bikers. Cindy had mastered timing her stepfather's movements by listening to his footfalls. Heavy footwear on wooden floors signaled his bad temperament. Measured, intentional walking meant he was searching for reasons to be upset. She'd become skilled at anticipating trouble before it arrived. Her posture would tense before he uttered a word. She'd suspend breathing until he walked past her room. That'd be why, age 12, she'd mastered becoming invisible. Not in a physical sense. That would attract notice, but the type of disappearing act where you're so unremarkable that others don't register your presence. Educators recorded her attendance mechanically. Peers recognized her name without remembering her appearance. Her own mother had ceased inquiring about her daily experiences. Her mother was too drained from managing Seth's volatile moods to spare emotional energy for discussions. Staying at their residence demanded perpetual alertness. Educational institutions merely filled the gaps between returning home. However, behind Murphy's salvage operation, encircled by discarded technology and the scent of oxidized metal, Cindy found respite. Murphy refrained from interrogating her. He'd observe as she rummaged through containers of electronic boards, pocketed knotted cables, and crammed damaged audio equipment into her bag. Occasionally, he'd make a sound and gesture toward the copper collection, and she'd dedicate 20 minutes to organizing materials before vanishing once more. An equitable exchange. She obtained components. He received unpaid assistance. Neither pretended it represented anything deeper. Her sleeping quarters barely accommodated a single bed and chest of drawers, but she commandeered the storage space as her laboratory. Concealed among outgrown winter garments sat her creation, a receiver assembled from vintage CB equipment, automobile speaker components, and a coffee container wrapped in exposed wire functioning as an aerial. She'd learned to join electronic connections through volumes from the public library. Rather than borrowing them, she'd capture pages photographically using school technology during lunch periods. Online instructional content when internet access was available. Experimentation when other methods failed. During nighttime hours, while Seth's snoring resonated through the structure like defective machinery, Cindy would scan across frequencies. Transport drivers complaining about inspection stations. Adolescents using handheld radios coordinating gatherings. Once, a woman reciting verse to an absent audience, her voice fragmenting through interference like a phantom. Recently, however, she'd been monitoring for something particular. Seth's nocturnal telephone discussions in the vehicle storage area. His tension when specific automobiles passed. Names he'd mentioned: Vince, Garrett, the North Side group that made him speak more quietly as she'd been capturing fragments on a memory component extracted from a damaged mobile device concealed inside vintage recording equipment. The evidence remained limited, but Cindy possessed patience that on Thursday evening, while examining analog channels, something froze her in place. Male speakers layered with traffic sounds. The motorcycle group is conducting their charitable event Saturday through Riverside and beyond the manufacturing district. A different speaker interrupted, younger and enthusiastic. Vince indicates we strike at the bridge crossing. In broad daylight. Demonstrate our power. A third person chuckled. Seth possesses insider knowledge regarding their schedule. This represents easy profit. That Cindy's grip locked on the tuning mechanism. Seth, her stepfather Seth. She replayed the recording, listened repeatedly, wrote urgently in her journal. Radio identifications, path specifications, schedule details. She drafted a basic diagram, comparing it with promotional material she noticed at the library regarding the Iron Hound's winter clothing fundraising motorcycle event. They were organizing an attack, and her stepfather was supplying intelligence, the Iron Hounds. She'd witnessed them previously, arriving at her educational institution amid rumbling chrome and protective gear, transporting containers of winter garments as though it required no special acknowledgement, simply quiet generosity. One member had smiled at her when she assisted with the entrance. She'd retained that smile's memory for considerable time. Cindy remained in her storage space, audio equipment pressed against her ears, monitoring men conspire violence against individuals who'd committed no offense. Her hands trembled as she completed page upon page with documentation. Frequency records, distance calculations, every particular she could derive from the interference. She'd been rehearsing invisibility since Seth entered their lives. Minimal movement, controlled respiration, forgettable presence. But seated there, examining her journal filled with proof, Cindy's hands became steady. The customary burden of fear transformed, became lighter. She'd spent extensive time attempting to avoid notice that she'd forgotten she could elect to be visible. She closed the journal, focused on her bedroom entrance. The residence was soundless except for Seth's snoring and the appliance humming below. The following day, she'd enter a facility full of unknown individuals and inform them their charitable event was about to transform into a bloodbath. Cindy bypassed her initial class. Her mother wouldn't register the absence. She'd ceased monitoring anything beyond Seth's temperament and her personal survival. The journal felt weighty as masonry in Cindy's bag as she traversed the 12 blocks to the manufacturing sector, each footstep more difficult than the previous one. The Iron Hounds facility was positioned between a closed food processing plant and a body art establishment that appeared perpetually operational. She'd passed it numerous times, consistently maintaining distance across the roadway, observing men service motorcycles and transport donation containers to vehicles. Maintain separation, observer status, the manner she'd learned to exist. Today would differ. The large entrance remained unsealed. Within, petroleum lubricant and scorched coffee blended with the metallic scent of metal joining. 3 men were disassembling a motor. A fourth labored in the corner, sparks erupting from his equipment like hostile insects. Nobody raised their gaze when she entered. She cleared her windpipe. Once, twice at a person with a shaven scalp and forearms decorated in tattoos eventually glanced toward her. "Are you lost, child? I require conversation with whoever commands this operation." He displayed amusement, traded looks with another person. "Regarding what?" "An academic assignment concerning motorcycle heritage. Regarding the attack you're unaware is approaching." The metal joining ceased. The abrupt quiet felt like force against her hearing organs. A man appeared from beyond a work surface. 50s, gray at the temples, a scar dividing his jaw like punctuation. His protective vest displayed Mac above an emblem she couldn't identify. He didn't display amusement, didn't adjust his expression toward anything suggesting tolerance. Cindy's hands shook as she extracted the journal. She positioned it on the closest level area, someone's equipment container, and opened to the frequency records. The diagram appeared next. Then the transcribed discussions with timestamps organized and accurate. Someone is organizing to strike your event tomorrow. I captured radio communications. They possess knowledge of your path. Riverside Bridge crossing, midday, when you're maximally vulnerable. Her vocal tone remained even. She'd rehearsed this section. One of the younger individuals laughed. The child's been viewing excessive police programming. But Mac retrieved the journal. His vision traveled across the sheets. Frequency identifications. Signal location attempts. Path examination sketched in drafting pencil. His jaw contracted. Where did you obtain this apparatus? Constructed it. From what materials? Salvage operation components. CB foundation. Speaker magnets. Coffee container aerial. She observed his expression. It functions. Why deliver this here? The inquiry arrived differently than she'd anticipated. Not suspicious. Authentically inquisitive. Because you assisted children at my educational institution. Because the men organizing this, she swallowed. One resides in my dwelling. The atmosphere went motionless. Even the metal joining equipment appeared to quiet. Mac positioned the journal down with deliberate accuracy. Identification? Seth Vance. Someone uttered profanity. Another person moved nearer, staring at Cindy as though she developed an additional skull. Mac's expression transformed to stone. You're confident? I've been documenting him since August. I recognize his vocal patterns. Mac extracted a mobile device, distanced himself 6 feet, conducted 2 conversations. The discussions were abbreviated, encrypted in terminology Cindy couldn't interpret. Upon returning, his vision had shed skepticism. He was performing calculations now, evaluating scenarios. We're confirming your intelligence. If your information is accurate, you preserved lives today. If you're conducting deception, he didn't complete the thought. The unexpressed warning suspended between them that I'm not incorrect. They dedicated 2 hours examining everything comprehensively. Mac accessed previous communications instruction from his military background, identified frequency sources, validated transmission configurations. A woman named Denise, slim, observant eyes, moves like a fighter, executed planning examination, comparing Cindy's path against recognized problematic locations. Every particular verified accurately, excessively accurately. Another person, younger than Mac, but possessing identical controlled readiness, examined Cindy while pretending to service an engine component. Where did you acquire radio technical knowledge? Library volumes. Online instruction when I could locate internet access. Did you instruct yourself in programming as well? Sufficient to function that he emitted a low sound of admiration. Mac delivered a look that silenced him. By midday, they'd redirected the complete event, modified schedules, summoned additional protection. And Cindy remained present because Mac had requested she stay. Not commanded, requested. He positioned himself on a work surface opposite her, examining the radio illustrations. You constructed this complete apparatus from salvage materials? Correct. Nobody provided assistance. Nobody possessed knowledge. Something altered in his expression. He observed her differently now, not as a potential danger or an unusual child with a conspiracy hypothesis, as someone he identified. Did you consume breakfast this morning? The inquiry surprised her. Negative. Midday meal yesterday? She hesitated excessively long. Max stood, approached a small refrigeration unit in the corner, returned with a sandwich still packaged and a carbonated beverage. He positioned them before her without ceremony. Consume. Cindy unwrapped the sandwich. Poultry, dairy, vegetation that wasn't degraded, and attempted to consume gradually. She failed. She completed it in 4 portions, washing it down with half the beverage before her cognition synchronized with her stomach. Upon looking upward, Mac was observing her with an expression she couldn't interpret. When did someone last prepare you a meal? Her throat constricted. She concentrated on the container, the moisture accumulating on the work surface. Mac reclined backward, arms crossed. You recoil whenever someone elevates their vocal volume. You haven't returned to your residence yet, despite educational hours concluding 3 hours previously. And you consume that sandwich as though you didn't know when the subsequent one would arrive. He paused. Seth is part of why you're genuinely here. Cindy's fingers contracted around the beverage container. I arrived because you required knowledge regarding the attack. That's not my inquiry. The facility felt excessively confined. Suddenly, excessive observation, excessive attention. She stood, grasping her bag. I should depart, Cindy. Mac's vocal tone halted her at the large entrance. Tomorrow, during the event, you're remaining here with us. You're going to assist coordinating communications. And afterward, he encountered her vision. Afterward, we're going to discuss what occurs next. She wanted to dispute, to insist she completed her obligation and could vanish back into interference and quiet. But the sandwich sat warm in her stomach, and Mac observed her as though she held significance, as though what occurred to her actually calculated for something. Saturday morning arrived and closed in mist. Cindy could barely observe across the roadway when she departed the residence. She appeared at the facility before sunrise, bag weighted with her reconstructed receiver and 3 journals filled with frequency diagrams. She'd barely rested. Seth's vocal patterns kept cycling in her cognition, that casual manner, discussing attacks the manner most individuals discussed meteorology. The facility had transformed overnight. Collapsible surfaces lined one partition, covered in apparatus that rendered Cindy's homemade configuration appear like a child's plaything. Mac was already present, dispensing coffee from a damaged percolator. He gestured toward the improvised command location. That's your position. We've got 3 frequencies to observe. Law enforcement scanners are protected channels, and the analog ranges where you capture the initial communications. He transferred her audio equipment that actually accommodated. Denise is your assistant. She'll manage rider coordination. You concentrate on dangers. Denise appeared with 2 energy beverages and a bread product. Consume first. Contemplate second. We've got 90 minutes before commencement. Cindy consumed mechanically, vision already examining the apparatus. Someone had incorporated her frequency documentation into a digital observation apparatus. Her coffee container aerial sat adjacent to an authentic amateur radio configuration bridged together with connectors she'd only studied about in instruction materials. Whoever connected this comprehended her improvised reasoning sufficiently to enhance it rather than substitute it. The riders commenced arriving at 7. Motors activated outside. Thunder that vibrated the glass panes. Mac assembled everyone for an instruction session, explaining the path modification without identifying Cindy specifically. We've obtained reliable intelligence regarding potential difficulty. Adhere to the revised strategy. Maintain proximity. Monitor your reflective surfaces. Shortly before 9, the group departed. 23 motorcycles plus support automobiles and sufficient winter garments to equip 3 educational institutions. Cindy observed through the large entrance as they vanished around the turn, then positioned herself in her seat and secured the audio equipment. The initial 60 minutes was standard. Riders confirming at checkpoint locations. Denise updating positions on a protected diagram with erasable marker. Law enforcement scanner reporting standard traffic. Cindy maintained one auditory organ on the analog frequencies, anticipating the unavoidable moment when the attack group realized their objectives weren't approaching that IT occurred mid-morning, approximately 2 hours into the event. They're absent. Path's been modified. The vocal pattern fragmented with irritation, interference, traffic sound, then another vocal pattern, deeper. Examine the alternative. Vince indicates they consistently utilize Riverside for charitable operations that Cindy's fingers moved rapidly across a portable computer keyboard. She discovered a vulnerability in the municipality's traffic administration apparatus 2 months previously. Obsolete protection, standard passwords nobody had trouble modifying. Not lawful, definitely not authorized. But presently, she didn't concern herself with legality. Traffic surveillance feeds materialized across the display. She examined intersections along the revised path, searching for clusters of automobiles that didn't belong. Present, 3 transport vehicles, dark coating, windows obscured, waiting near a side roadway that intersected the group's trajectory in exactly 12 minutes. They're repositioning, Cindy stated, maintaining her vocal tone level. Maple and Fourth. You got 10 minutes, perhaps less. Denise didn't interrogate it. She activated the radio. Led motorcycle. This is headquarters. Redirect at Harrison. Repeat. Redirect at Harrison. Danger at Maple and Fourth. Max vocal pattern returns steady. Understood. Dividing configuration. Half proceeding parallel on Oak. Half cycling back through residential area. Cindy switched surveillance perspectives, monitoring both groups. The attack group remained at the intersection, motors operating, anticipating objectives that would never materialize. She counted 3 men in the primary vehicle, could observe one examining his mobile device repeatedly, probably receiving increasingly angry communications from whoever was executing this operation. Then a law enforcement vehicle appeared behind them. Casual standard patrol, except Cindy understood better. Mac possessed contacts in the department, individuals who were indebted to the motorcycle group. The officers approached the vehicles, posed inquiries, wanted to observe registrations. The attack group dispersed. 2 vehicles departed before the officers even reached their glass panes. The third attempted to perform calmness, but Cindy observed the officer's physical communication modify when he verified the identification plates. Support was summoned. Within minutes, the intersection was illuminated with red and blue. The group reassembled 6 blocks distant, proceeded cleanly into the community facility parking area by midday. Cindy monitored them on the surveillance until they were protected inside the structure, encircled by families and children and the standard chaos of a charitable occurrence. She removed the audio equipment. Her hands were trembling. Denise compressed her shoulder. You performed well, child. Genuinely well. But when Mac returned to the facility 3 hours subsequently, he appeared concerned instead of relieved. He positioned himself opposite Cindy, who remained at the command position, organizing frequency records more from custom than requirement. Today proceeded perfectly because of you, he stated quietly. The event was protected. Children obtained their garments. Nobody sustained injury, that's positive. But those men at the intersection, they're going to determine someone betrayed them. And Seth's going to receive information about it. Mac inclined forward. When did you last experience protection in your personal dwelling? The inquiry made her torso contract. Her respiration became shallow. Cindy stared at her hands. I coped out that's not my inquiry. His vocal tone remained gentle, which somehow rendered it worse. You recoil when entrances slam. You remained here until darkness yesterday. You're skilled at interpreting frequencies, but I'm skilled at interpreting individuals. And you're frightened. He doesn't possess knowledge. I was participating that you're confident regarding that because desperate men execute desperate actions when their strategies collapse. And if Seth connected to this group, I don't possess anywhere alternative to proceed. Mac was quiet for an extended moment. Then he stood, approached the small refrigeration unit, returned with another carbonated beverage, positioned it before her like a peace gesture. Correct, he stated finally. You possess. The detainments occurred on Monday. Cindy was in her quarters, audio equipment secured, but not monitoring anything. When she detected the emergency vehicle sounds, she relocated to the opening just as two patrol automobiles entered the driveway, their illumination painting the area in alternating red and blue. Seth emerged fighting, vocalizing about entitlements and legal representatives and how this represented an error. The area residents assembled on their platforms, mobile devices activated, documenting everything. Cindy observed her stepfather pressed against a law enforcement automobile, restrained, still vocalizing as they communicated his entitlements. She couldn't process what she experienced. Relief, perhaps, or simply exhaustion. Her physical form understood before her cognition. Her shoulders descended. Her jaw released tension. The men from the intersection had surrendered identifications under force. Mobile device records connected Seth to Vince, to Garrett, to the complete network. Financial exchanges demonstrated compensation for consultation, encryption for selling intelligence regarding charitable paths and protection vulnerabilities. And there existed an anonymous communication delivered through channels the law enforcement wouldn't interrogate, containing audio documentation that secured everything definitively. Cindy never informed her mother she'd conducted that communication. Didn't explain the memory component concealed in the recording apparatus. The months of documentation. The careful modification to eliminate her personal presence from the recordings. She withdrew, observed her mother's expression. More aged than she recalled, degraded by years of navigating cautiously. You're present now, Cindy stated quietly. That's what holds significance that I should have departed him earlier. I should have protected you. Cindy didn't possess knowledge of how to respond to that. So she simply maintained physical contact. Child Protection Services materialized on Wednesday. A case administrator named Patricia, with compassionate vision and a container filled with documentation. She posed careful inquiries in a gentle vocal tone, documenting injuries Cindy had learned to conceal and fear she'd learned to transport like additional burden. Discussion occurred regarding temporary positioning, evaluations, a trajectory forward that felt more like a labyrinth. But Mac conducted communications. Denise contacted a nonprofit legal representative she recognized from her previous labor with domestic violence shelters. Within 2 weeks, circumstances commenced progressing that a legal representative, an apartment across municipality, an employment interview with a company that collaborated with a motorcycle group network. The apartment was compact but clean. The partitions were intact. Her mother could vocalize without measuring every utterance first. Cindy's mother wept when she executed the lease. In this occasion, it wasn't from fear. The facility became Cindy's secondary residence officially after Mac cleared a corner workspace and installed an authentic work surface. He appeared one Saturday with a container of electronic components, not salvage operation materials, but actual functioning components still in packaging. Determined you'd want genuine components for once, he stated, positioning the container down with exaggerated deliberation. No more coffee container aerials. Cindy stared at resistors, capacitors, circuit boards, cable tools still wrapped in protective material. Her throat went contracted. I cannot provide compensation for this. Positive thing, I'm not requesting you to. Mac elevated a seating device. Here's the arrangement. You assist us maintaining communications apparatus. Instruct some of the younger individuals basic electronic knowledge. And this area is yours. Equitable exchange. She constructed her initial legitimate receiver that afternoon. No estimation, no replacements, just clean technical work and components that actually corresponded with the circuit illustrations. When she activated it and detected clear audio across multiple frequencies, something in her torso released. Denise commenced instructing her regarding encrypted communications, authentic protection procedures, not merely backdoor vulnerabilities and standard passwords. Samara, a former aerospace technical specialist who'd concluded employment to labor on motorcycles, demonstrated programming that actually expanded beyond quick exploitations. The instructional sessions commenced small. 3 children from the area, referred by a youth counselor who recognized Mac. Cindy instructed them to join electronic connections, to interpret circuit illustrations, to observe potential in damaged objects. The instructional sessions expanded more rapidly than anticipated. 8 students became standard within weeks. Before extensive time, they claimed half the facility. Tuesday and Thursday evenings reserved for them. Some children arrived from dwellings like hers. Others simply required somewhere to exist. Cindy never inquired why they appeared. She simply transferred tools to them and demonstrated what became achievable when you ceased anticipating authorization to construct something superior. But a local news group appeared one afternoon, capturing footage about the motorcycle group's youth assistants. The journalist was young, enthusiastic, posing inquiries regarding inspiration and community influence. She cornered Cindy while she was assisting a younger student resolve a short circuit. What motivated you to participate with this initiative? Cindy observed the partially constructed receiver before her student. The facility filled with individuals who'd elected to appear. The environment she'd accidentally assisted creating. She contemplated that evening with a coffee container aerial, examining through interference for something worth retaining. I wasn't attempting to be a champion, she stated, modifying a cable on the circuit board. I was simply attempting to survive. It appears sometimes that's identical. The journalist displayed satisfaction, content with her quotable statement. The recording equipment moved to other students, other projects. But Mac, positioned near the large entrance, captured Cindy's vision and gestured once. comprehension transferring between them without utterances. That evening, after the students departed and the facility became quiet, Cindy positioned herself at her work surface, constructing a new monitoring apparatus for the charitable groups. Her hands moved with assurance now, no longer trembling when she reached for components. The receiver operated low in the background. Classic rock music, not capture communications. Her mobile device vibrated. A communication from her mother inquiring what she desired for the evening meal. Simple, standard, the category of inquiry that used to feel like a privilege. Cindy displayed satisfaction and inner response. Then she returned to her circuit board, joining connections that would maintain, constructing apparatuses designed to persist. Outside, motors rumbled as riders returned from an evening operation. Someone laughed. Music drifted from the body art establishment adjacent. The environment continued rotating, filled with sound and interference and frequencies anticipating discovery. But now Cindy wasn't simply monitoring anymore. She was dwelling. Cindy didn't anticipate someone to rescue her. She constructed her personal path outward, one damaged receiver at an occasion. What would you execute if you possessed the capacity to prevent something terrible, but vocalizing meant risking everything? Submit your contemplations below, and if the narrative affected you, distribute it. Someone present might require detecting it. Observe you in our subsequent recording.